Whether we like it or not, we live in an age where much of what goes on in our daily lives is monitored, collected, and sold to interested parties. Our driving records, our medical history, our internet traffic, and most importantly, our credit information. A mistake on your credit report can cost you money. It can increase the interest you pay on loans, prevent you from getting a mortgage or buying a car, landing a job, or getting a security clearance. It's not uncommon. And as we first reported in February, a government study indicated that as many as 40 million Americans have a mistake on their credit report. 20 million have significant mistakes. And our own investigation of the credit reporting industry shows that those mistakes can be nearly impossible to get removed from your record. Consumer credit reporting is a $4 billion a year industry dominated by three large companies, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. They keep files on 200 million Americans and traffic in our financial reputations. They make their money gathering information from people we do business with and selling it to banks, merchants, insurance companies, and employers, and they use it to make judgments about our creditworthiness and reliability. But now the reliability of the industry is being questioned in an 8-year Federal Trade Commission study. John Leibowitz is the chairman.
Here's what we found. Some pretty troubling information. 1 out of 5 Americans has an error on their credit report. And 1 out of 10 has an error on their credit report that might lower their credit score.
I'm trying to think of another industry where a 20% error rate would be acceptable. That's a pretty high error rate.
It's a pretty high error rate.
I think the more we look at this, and the more the American people know about this, the madder they're going to get.
Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine has opened his own investigation into the credit reporting industry, which for years has blamed mistakes on banks and merchants that provide them with bad information. But DeWine argues the fault lies with the industry for what he says are clear violations of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Do these companies have a legal responsibility to make sure that the information is accurate?
The federal law says that if you believe that there is a mistake, you can go to them and they have an obligation to do a reasonable investigation. They're not doing a reasonable investigation. They're not doing an investigation at all.
Every day, DeWine's office fields calls from desperate constituents who can't get the credit reporting agencies to answer their questions or correct mistakes on their report, like paid bills listed as delinquent, closed accounts listed as open, and bad debts that belong to other people with similar names or social security numbers.
The problem is not that they make mistakes, it's they won't fix the mistakes.
Did you have the authority to say, wait a minute, after looking at somebody's file and say that, this is somebody made a mistake, this person doesn't owe this money?
No, we didn't have that power.
All they did was read the disputes and reduce them to a 2-digit code like never late or not mine. It was then sent with a 2 or 3 line summary and no documentation back to the bank or department store that furnished the original information. If there was a difference of opinion between the creditor and the person who was filing the complaint, how was it usually resolved in favor of the creditor?
Yeah. Yeah. The creditor was always right. Mostly we took for granted the word of the bank. If the bank said, hey, this guy owns $100, so it is.
None of us have ever interviewed anybody in Chile from Experian, and we've got a federal court ordering them to bring these people forward, and we're still waiting.
Much of what's known about the inner workings of the consumer credit agencies come out of lawsuits filed by Len Bennett and Sylvia Goldsmith, who have subpoenaed company records and deposed employees and executives. They say under the current system, there is no way for people like Judy Thomas to get their problem solved. So all these people who take the time to meticulously document a case that the bill isn't theirs or the bill has been paid, that is never seen by anybody?
It's not seen by anyone who considers it in determining whether or not information will be removed from a credit report.
It's not forwarded on to the person who has the complaint with you?
No, it is never forwarded on. Never forwarded on to the creditor.
We can get a jury verdict for $1 million. That's chump change to some of these bureaus. They would rather pay a verdict in $1 million than to actually go in and change the policies and procedures that they have, because that's much more expensive to them.
I can say this without qualification. The dispute procedures used by the credit reporting agencies, uniformly used, completely fail to comply with the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Courts have found that. The Federal Trade Commission has found that. It's not even a close call.
Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine agreed.
I think the industry is a mess, and I think the impact that has on real people is just unconscionable.
You think they're breaking the law?
I think they're breaking the law. There is no doubt in my mind they are breaking the law.
We wanted to talk to Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, but like most consumers, we were unsuccessful. The agencies referred us to the spokesman for their lobbying group in Washington. He too declined our request for an on-camera interview. But he did provide a written statement citing an industry-sponsored survey that showed that 95% of its customers were satisfied with the dispute process. The industry maintains it's in compliance with federal law. And one final update. In February, John Leibowitz stepped down as chairman of the Federal Trade Commission.